Welcome back to the Alopecia Angel podcast. I'm your host, Johanna Dolma, and today I have a very spectacular guest. She and we recently met at a trade show of sorts here locally, and we had a wonderful connection. And so I thought that she would be brilliant to bring to the podcast because she is a jack of many trades. It's quite fascinating to hear her story and to see what she is capable of doing and even sharing her wisdom. So her name is Andrea Blythe, the traveling Magi of Let Love Rise. She's a mystical storyteller, mindset coach, and curator of transformational retreats, spreading ancient truth and light across the globe. After the unraveling of her 20-year marriage and a complete identity reset, she walked down her own heroine's journey back to her true self. There were many teachers who guided her path, all of whom she is eternally grateful for. Today, she guides those on spiritual journeys to recognize the patterns and soul roadblocks that keep them from playing small so that they can move forward into a more courageous life of authentic joy and fulfillment. As the curator of transformational retreats and sacred circles, she's helped hundreds of souls reclaim their joy, authentic power, and soul-aligned path. And she's honored to help you do the same. So welcome, Andrea, because this is quite fascinating. And just to give all of my listeners a little backstory, what had happened was I was attracted to her booth in particular because she had a bunch of poker cards. And
I love that. Just poker cards. Yeah.
Poker cards.
Like I was attracted right in.
The thing is, we play a lot of board games and we play a lot of card games at home. And I'm looking at the poker cards and I'm like, this is something I've never been really seeing. So tell me more. She asked for my birthday. She gets my birthday and you're the ace of spades and you're the Queen of Hearts, and I just made this up on the side, but she's just telling me exactly what my cards are, and she's telling me exactly like who I am, what my soul's purpose is, and if I'm not in alignment with it, and so much more intricacies. And I found it to be fascinating. So as a curious, open learner, I started asking for more. And then I received a reading between my and another person's birthday, a stack of cards per se, and how those two cards interact. And it was so amazing to hear these things and tell us, how did you get on this path of poker cards to begin with? Because I know you do so much more. So let's start there.
If you had told me 10 years ago that I was going to be reading and interpreting playing cards for a living and helping people align with their soul roadmap, I'd be like, you're crazy. Because once upon a time, I was a married woman, family, stay-at-home mom, raising family in a Christian home. And 2020 was a powerful year. I know you know that. We all know that. What happened in my whole, let's just say, deck of cards just crumbled. It began with the divorce of my 20-year marriage. My husband walked away from our marriage, and that left me faced with the question, who am I? Who am I now? What am I doing? Where am I going? I realized through that experience that I had given so much of my identity to being a wife and a mother and a high school teacher. And when all of that was stripped away within a week, and then the unraveling that just unfolded, it sends you on a journey of self-discovery. I often compare Dorothy when she arrives in the land of Oz. That's the best metaphor that I can explain, was like going through that tornado that Dorothy went through. And then you land somewhere and you're like, what? Where am I? Who am I? What's my purpose? What am I doing here? And to answer specifically about the cards, how they found me was a colleague at the time of mine noticed my deep pain and questioning, and she just pointed me to a friend of hers who does these readings. So I figured I was going in for a tarot reading, right? I'm like, okay, I'll do whatever. Like, just somebody give me some guidance, some direction. And I had my very first Magi card reading that was based on this ancient system of playing cards. Unbeknownst to all of us, what we have been playing with our entire lives is actually an astrological book of wisdom that can guide us. And I've been spending the last 6 years of my life after that reading, studying the system, getting trained and certified in it so that I can help others, because it was a reflection to me in a very tangible way to who I was. And that was the big question I was asking. Who am I? Who am I if I'm not a wife, if I'm not a mom, if I'm not a high school teacher? Who am I? And the cards brought me home to myself. yourself.
That's fascinating. As I'm reading a little bit more about you and understanding you more, tell us and explain a little bit more about what's happening in the cards right now as we're moving into a different time, a different era, a different year. 2026, and there's just so much going on in the world and also just in general. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. And of course, my listeners primarily, they have health concerns. They have hair loss. When you have a health concern, when you have hair loss, you have shifting parts that, maybe need your attention right now. And so everything else needs backseat.
So for your listeners, let me explain just a small snippet of the system because it's vastly complex. It's the onion. You peel it back and there's so much in here. But essentially, the 4 suits represent the 4 seasons of a year. And they also have within each suit, they pinpoint an area of your life. So the hearts are about love and relationships and home and family. The clubs are all about our mental pursuits, our mind, our connection to intuition, our lifelong learning. Diamonds reflect our values and our money. Show me the money, right? But then there's the spade, and this is for your listeners. I would look for spades in the roadmap because spades represent our health and our career, and also being the representative of winter season or the north on a compass. They are also very spiritually embedded symbology. It really helps people to understand where their journey is. And so the cards, depending on, it's very much like an astrological birth chart, if anybody has had that done, where you know that there are all the planets, and depending on where those planets fall in your specific chart and how they speak to each other is going to give you insight into yourself. And same with the Magi cards, depending on where the cards fall, what the number is, because we have the symbology, then you have the numerology. The number gives you an indicator of what it is revealing to you. And then, of course, the astrology. The astrology is the placement. And the cards are another spiritual tool to put into your tool belt when you're asking those questions, like I was asking back in 2020. Where do I go now? What do I do? Who am I? It was just one of the pieces of it. But if anybody has questions about the hair loss, their health journey, what's going on really inside all of it, I think all great wisdom points inward, right? It points to our inner knowing. And we just happen to live in a world where it's so loud out there and we can override our intuition like that. That's why the mindset work really kicked in for me, because I realized that even if I had an intuitive hit, maybe I would quickly fear or self-doubt. These are the roadblocks I talk a lot about, would come up and be like, nah. You override your intuition and then you get on this path that is not authentic to you and it's not soul aligned. And we often experience the contrast or the difficult things in life as a way to bring us back home to ourselves. So my story came through divorce. It came through mental health and suicide and the uncoupling of a family and rebuilding from all that. That's my story. My card is a very stable health card. So that's not my personal challenge. However, I've read for many people where I could just look at their karma cards. I can look at the soul essence of their birth card, and there's a whole lot of insight that just from that one piece of information, you can reflect, right? Your life is yours. You're going to do what you want with the cards you're dealt, with the wisdom that you have, with the information that you're gaining. It's always your choice. We have free will, but when you choose to really reflect on what is being presented to you and to go within, that's where alignment, that's where shifts happen. And as you started out that question, astrologically, what's happening in 2026, it is powerful shifting energy. There have been so many astrological events in the month of February alone, which is the shortest month of our year, but probably the most impactful. And not just a shift in energy for the year, but on a collective scale, huge, massive energy shifts. I always say it points back to the question, who are you now? What matters to you now? What's lighting up your soul now? What feels good now? Where's the joy now? And if you don't know, these are smart questions to start asking yourself. to get you back into alignment, because we are designed to experience just like this beautiful playground called planet Earth, and to fill our lives with joy and creativity and beauty and love and gratitude. That's how we were created. I'll tell you what, that's not what I felt in those hard years, but this system helps me, has been an anchor in bringing it back to how I am now, where I am now, on the other side of a lot of the painful stuff. And it doesn't mean I'm not, we just went through an eclipse season. So it doesn't mean I don't experience pain. I do. I just have more tools in the tool belt.
That's what this is all about, is really having more tools in the tool belt so you can prepare, so that you can be aware and then really pivot when needed. So tell us a little bit more about this expertise in adolescent mental health, suicide, and this healing journey. I only bring this up because, not to poach or anything, but really because suicide is such a big deal inside the hair loss industry. And when it comes to autoimmune alopecia in general, I noticed from early on of my own situation, my own journey of going through it, that there's a couple of factors that play in. The bullying, first and foremost, especially with young people. It's the bullying that happens, but it's also some of the medications cause suicide. And only this is coming out now, which these medications have been on the market for years. So that's something to think about. And also, I can see and I felt how painful the situation is when you are losing your hair, and it's almost like no one can help. And you're at this really rock bottom, black hole situation. You've seen the doctors, you've done the medications, and still nothing. And knowing what I know now, I know that suicide is not the answer. There's tons of helplines, and that this actually has a greater risk on young people more than anything. And so it's really disheartening, because there is help, there is hope, and there's a lot of wonderful nonprofits out there doing so much good work about suicide. I feel like we need to be more vigilant of this, not be in denial, not be too busy for children, not be too busy for our teenagers, not be too busy for our 20-something-year-olds, because they need us more than they know that they need us. And they also need us even when they don't realize it, because they do. And we've all had at some point a dark spot in our lives, maybe dark thoughts, and maybe even just feelings that can lead to bad thoughts.
There's so much that you just shared there. And specifically because my heart and soul was in raising my 3 children, as well as all the students that I had the opportunity to teach as a high school teacher. So I took this very precious age, say of 14 to 18, that I just loved on these kids. And I have to say that what is so hard and disheartening for the younger generation is that they're stepping into feelings of extreme proportions for the first time, and they don't yet have that perspective. So when I was first touched by suicide, it was one of my students, the very first year that I taught here in Idaho, took a gun and shot himself under the chin and survived. This precious being survived for another 3 years. He did eventually lose his life to an after effect of this gunshot wound to the brain. The work that he and I were able to do together is something that I continue into my work today, including often giving donations to Idaho suicide prevention organizations. But I remember that being so challenging, because this child that was a student of mine reminded me so much of my own child that was just like a year, maybe 2 years younger at the time. What I wanted to share was perspective. The way through, in my opinion, understanding how can we be present with a really painful emotion? How can we be present when we feel hopeless? You do simple things to take care of yourself. You take a bath. You call a friend. You sit outside under a tree, maybe lay on the back, look up at the clouds overhead, and remind yourself that you're just a small part in this cosmos that is ever expanding and you were a part of the creation that continues to this day for 13 billion years and is still creating. And when you're in those dark moments, you don't see it, you don't feel it. You feel that the only way out. And honestly, the mind of a person who is in the depths of depression believes that their life will be better if they just remove themselves from it. If there's one thing I want people to know, that is so, your life matters. Your life matters. You came here for a reason. And these tears are coming up and they're just bringing up all these things because my son, who I saw so much as a reflection of in my student, a couple years later would make attempts on his life and thank the goddess, thank the universe, thank spirit, thank source that my son is still here today. But this student of mine is gone and he'll never get to live his adult experience, but the impact that he had in his short 19 years on this planet, it touched me. And I was his French teacher, right? I'm just a human, just one person, let alone all the people. So perspective that there is so much more and how we can equip ourselves with the tools to get through the weave of emotion at the time. And so much of that, I believe, has to do with connecting to something greater than ourselves, from a tree to an animal to the great divine spirit, whatever it is that helps it. Music is one of my huge teaching pillars that I use. I incorporate it in every workshop that I lead, every event. There's always music because music can drop us out of the headspace into the heart and remind us that some of the greatest pieces of art, greatest plays, greatest poems, greatest music ever written came from the depths of processing. And my own story came from my own needing to turn into a creative outlet to release the pain. It's our job as adults to equip the younger ones with tools. And I think creative expression is a huge tool to help the youth specifically to get through that. And then other things like knowing your soul essence, like what I do with the Magi, what birth cards, what human design, what Enneagram, what all these things that can help us see who we are and what our gifts are and what we're here to bring forth. Whew, did I answer your question? I don't even know where I went. I just went on a tangent somewhere.
I think back to myself when I was in my teens, and I was very curious too as to what my life would look like, how steps would unfold, and maybe even younger in elementary school, especially at the time when they start asking, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so give like this vague answer, or maybe the answer that just feels right, or maybe some answer that your parents would be proud of you. You can say, oh, I want to be a dentist, I want to be a lawyer, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then at some point, there is some sort of intuition. There is like a veering off. Maybe you're like, no, I want to do vet school and I want to do this. But what I'm trying to say is like how beautiful it would be, especially since you have that background as a high school teacher, to go in with freshmen and be like, look, because of your birthday, because of everything, this is your soul's purpose. You can do whatever thing you want. You want to be in the NFL, go for it. You want to be Michael Phelps, go for it. But at the same time, having this information beforehand would be so huge. And this is why I'm a little astonished, as curious as I am, that this is the first time I've ever heard about your poker cards. I remember our conversation at the trade show, and you were saying that ancient civilizations had this, that the Egyptians had this. I would love for you to speak more about the history of this, because I think that will just really, it would create more of an interesting fact versus this is just something new.
Yeah, I want to be very clear that I did not make this up at all. This is not mine. It is something I've been studying. I've been learning. If anybody would, I'm going to give the history in a second, but if anybody would like to learn more about this, the most prolific person that is sharing this wisdom's name is Robert Lee Camp. He is my teacher, an amazing soul who's really done so much to bring into the modern world this time and age, this age of Aquarius, talk about the astrology, that we are truly shifting out or into this age of Aquarius right now, which is all about information, obviously, right? So much has changed since even last year in terms of AI and vision and information and access with all of that. Where this wisdom came from is called the Magi Card science system. And I do want to be very clear that this is a science. It is a calculated formula based on the solar energy of your birthday. That's why I ask everybody, what's your birthday? What's your birthday? What's your birthday? Let's figure this out. because there's so much encoding in this. It is believed to have originated with the Atlanteans, so Atlantis times, and was later practiced in the pyramid temples of Egypt until around the time of Ramses, when Ramses decided to be the pharaoh, and it's all about me. I'm the one with the power. And so this went underground at that time. And this is thousands of years before Jesus was on the scene. We're going back in history, and it was kept secret for millennia. The wisdom was traveled through, as much wisdom has been through the ages, through storytelling. And then in modern era, I think some of the earliest writings that can be found today about this appeared in the 1800s. The Mystic Test book came out, and there's a couple other books where the system is being built upon. But what I love about it is that it is a breathing system where there are brilliant minds that are looking at the patterns, because it's all a pattern. It's all a pattern. And the way that the cards move, we follow our karma cards in a very particular, precise pattern. And so the more people that are studying this and learning this, the more that is being developed even in today's understanding of how to practically use this system. So that's a little bit about the history of the system. And most people, if there's one connection that the word Magi stands out for some, it's because of the Magi kings, the three kings who came to visit Jesus at the time of his birth, bearing gifts. They are believed to have been living members of the order of the Magi. And that's, I believe, where the name came from, through these three kings.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Is there any other themes, topics, or tidbits of facts that you would love to share or have us know, or that we must know in regards to what you do, or how to utilize the cards, or how to discover our soul's purpose a little bit further?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I like to share with people, and it was something that I had to experience on my own soul journey, as I said, as I was in Dorothy's tornado and landed in Oz. I'm like, okay, now I'm here. I'm going to start walking down the yellow brick road, and you meet people and you learn things. Human design, I want to talk about that for a second, because it was downloaded, right? Like at the end of last century, and it just took off. People understand human design. They are intrigued about learning their human design in ways that the Magi cards just haven't had a moment in the spotlight yet. So when I learned my human design, of course, it resonated very strongly, just like my astrological birth chart, just like my Enneagram, just like my Magi cards. All of these systems were a profound reflection of who I came here to be, and they all work cohesively together, which I love. But what I want to say about that is I started going down the rabbit hole of human design and trying to understand all the intricacy of it and getting books. And then I realized eventually, I was like, you know what? This is not mine to learn. This is mine to know who I know is an expert in this area. I have people who are expert human design people. So if I have a question, I can go to them. If somebody is coming to me and wants to know their human design, I can point them in that direction. And I want to just circle back to what that talk about suicide and that feeling of absolute hopelessness. I just want anybody who's been touched by suicide, who knows somebody or is personally going through the internal battle now, is that our minds are the game changers. We are not our thoughts. It takes mastery of our lifetime, right, to understand that we're not our thoughts. We are the observer of our thoughts. That's where mystical wisdom, like the Magi cards, all of the tools, all the amazing interviews that you bring people in on to just be curious. There is help here in this, and we are designed to help one another connect to our purpose. And our purpose is what lights us up. What lights you up, right? Your story, Johanna, is so powerful. The way that you are taking your personal story, your pain, what you had to overcome so that you can be service and a beacon of light. My goodness, we're going through times that are very challenging. We all need to shine our authentic light, and we all do it differently and uniquely. That's what's beautiful. But connecting to the light is what it's all about.
Well said. So where can we find you? The fun thing about this is that you could start right away. You can go connect with Andrea and understand a little bit more about what cards you hold for
Yes.
you personally and what this looks like.
So the easiest way to find anything is on Let Love Rise. So the YouTube channel is Let Love Rise. My website, letloverise.com. That is the foundation. That's when I was talking about when I was processing through my divorce grief and the aftermath of my divorce, including my son's suicidal ideations. And that whole journey, it's all documented in the stories because first and foremost, I'm a storyteller. And so you can find everything at letloverise.com. And there is a connection. I think it says like videos to my YouTube page where I have been going through this year, the 52 cards of the 52 weeks of a year. It's a cosmic calendar. I will have all 52 videos for all 52 cards. So Let Love Rise is a great place to go, YouTube or the website. This is what lights me up for sure, is sharing this wisdom with others.
I can tell. So now go to her website, get your free clarity coach call, and then you'll be able to understand a little bit more about you, your personal cards, and where this fits into the scope of your life currently as it is. So that's really exciting because literally when I met her and we started seeing what my birthday was and what cards held for me, it was quite fascinating and intriguing to hear more. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. Any last words or parting words that you would like to share with our listeners?
Oh, your life matters. Your life matters. And you came to live a life of courageous authenticity that is embedded in joy and what brings you fulfillment. So relentlessly pursue it.
Oh, beautiful. Very well said. Thank you so much for your time. This has been fantastic. And listeners, thank you so much. We will see you next time. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Alopecia Angel podcast, a positive light in healing alopecia. You can do this and we can help. Spread the word that reversing alopecia is possible by telling your friends and family.